Yeah, well, you say it's funny exactly what I was doing when I was 23 years old, and I look back at my career when I was 23 years old. I was doing the exact same thing, which is I just graduated from West Point when I was 22. When I was 23, moved to Germany, took over my first tank platoon, and like right at that exact same time in my life, I was leading a bunch of people. Now, our experiences weren't necessarily voluntary.
Uh-huh.
In fact, a lot of soldiers went to great lengths sometimes to try and avoid these 30-day field exercises. You'd call them a big mega triathlon camp. But they all volunteered for the Army. So
Hmm.
there was this element of, I think triathletes are the same way. They volunteer for triathlon, but then sometimes they have a hard time making themselves do some of the work. It was the same thing with my soldiers, was they'd all volunteered and wanted to be in the Army. And some of them had been a little bit voluntold by a judge or someone like that, right? But
Same with Outward Bound.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, but you come with people of all different varying levels of motivation, that some just absolutely love it and want to be there. Some are maybe told to go there due to some of their circumstances, but varying levels of discipline, varying levels of motivation. And what I loved about these training situations was we would be in the Army together for 12 months, but it was those 2 or 3 times a year, sometimes many more once the war started, those immersive training exercises that we'd get all of our work done. It was like, boy, if we could do this all the time, think how good we would be. And actually, there was a time when that's what we did all the time, and that's when we deployed to Iraq for 12 months straight. It was like a huge camp. I mean, that's all we were doing. We were isolated from our family. And I just look back at how good we got in those short periods of time of what we were doing, which was the fire and maneuver training that we were doing in the Army. And then there was a saying from someone that said, all the studying in your life, one firefight in combat will teach you more than all the study that you've done in your life getting ready for it. And that wasn't quite true, because all the intellectual study and rigor and preparation moving into the combat experiences I had really informed it and gave me much broader perspective.
Sure.
Because sometimes you only just know that little thing that you know, and no situation in combat, one war is very different from another. But the point was, I learned absolutely, I can think back to some very intense experiences I had in Iraq, and those were the most instructive periods of my life by far, because it was absolutely, I was totally focused.
Yeah.
And obviously a triathlon camp, we're not going to get you to that level of focus and memory, but it's the same kind of thing that we're shooting for. And I'm just so excited to do this camp, because you're an expert at this on your side. And I'm coming at it from not a triathlon coach, because I'm not a triathlon coach, although some people write me like I am, but a person who's totally interested in the sport from a storytelling perspective, from a business perspective, but a human interest. I love it, because I'm fascinated by why people do it, why I used to do it. I joke that I'm a recovering triathlete, because right now I'm not doing it. I have an injury in my hip I need to get taken care of. And I'm also full-time working on my business. And I'm kind of the person that if I can't do something full out, like when I wanted to go pro in triathlon, that's all I wanted to focus on. But if I'm an all or nothing kind of person, and probably I need to work on that. But,
that's another podcast.
Another podcast. Yeah. Issues. Right.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, I'm fascinated by this concept of immersion. And one of the things that you hit on when you were talking about, you talked about athletes who had seen all of Bobby's videos, but now they're at the camp and they've listened to all of our podcasts, and they're saying, well, now I really get it, and I'm going to go back and watch those videos. So talk about that dynamic between theory and then experience, and then going back to theory after experience. That I think beautiful sandwich between theory, application, and theory.
Was that a sandwich or a sandwich?
I think it's it's not a sandwich, it's a sandwich. But anyway.
Yeah, it's really neat to me to watch Bobby teach. I've been exposed to him for about 8 years, I think. When I met Bobby when I first did my level 1 USA triathlon certification, And, I knew right away that he really knew what he was talking about. He had a lot of experience, and I enjoyed learning from him. And so people at the camper asked me how I got involved with Bobby. Like, oh, how did you get to be here coaching with Bobby? And, the truth is I've just stalked him for 8 years, and I keep showing up. And so while I don't really think of myself as having attended a camp per se, I attended, I went to USA Triathlon coaching certifications. I traveled to Colorado Springs. I flew out here at my own expense to meet with him in person, and I did the same thing with Total Immersion and getting to know Terry. I'm really blessed to be able to just send Terry or Bobby an email and hopefully get a reply within, a short period of time. I look to both of them as mentors, but really it's because I've invested my time and my money, and I've immersed myself in a learning experience. Nevertheless, when I leave that experience, I'm left with this feeling of, how am I going to remember that all? And so having a resource, in Terry's case, Terry's an excellent writer, and his already produced DVDs of all the drills are an excellent resource for me to go back to and watch again after having listened to him and watched him teach and being able to teach with him watching me. And the same thing with Bobby. I've been exposed to his drills the first time. I think he just had 45 minutes with us, and it was rapid fire through all these drills, and I couldn't wait to go experience that again. So I sought him out. I was living in Colorado at the time, and every week Bobby had his skills and drills, and so I would drive an hour every week to meet him, and there was a fee per session, and it wasn't outrageously expensive, but it was more than a few bucks too. But it was totally...
This is back before Bobby was such a famous big deal.
He was a big deal in certain circles, but it was completely, I recognized the value of it. I would drive an hour down to Boulder and then an hour back, so 2-hour drive just to spend 45 minutes or an hour with Bobby and Marcy, getting exposed again over and over, and I would take copious notes afterwards. So I can really appreciate the value of experiencing it one-on-one, having hands-on correction, individual attention. I can think that I'm doing something correctly, but even now here helping to coach at this camp, I still can't wait for my 10 minutes with Bobby to get some one-on-one video done.
Yeah.